Doctors and nurses of Reddit who have delivered babies to mothers who clearly cheated on their husbands. What was that like? Paramedic here. Our crew delivered a full birth in the back of our rig. We have 2 paramedics in the back with the PT, a driver, and I'm working on the laptop listening to info they are telling me to add to the report. All of a sudden, it goes kind of quiet. I hear the mother let out a very loud "oh crap, it's not white." She was very white. Few more seconds of silence, and I'm like, the driver alarm, beeping light on the center console sent from a button in the back, was pressed 2 times quickly, generally meaning to turn around, to get info for the report. I turn from the front passenger seat, to see a very dark skin colored baby, I'm guessing Cuban. I can't see the mother's face, but all I see is her shaking her head. She begins to worry, saying that her husband is meeting us there at the hospital. He can't see this. I just continue the report, and I'm not sure what the problem is, but I guess we'll see when we get there. Flash forward to the We stop outside the ambulance bay. I get out to open the doors, and am met by another very white heavyset guy in a uniform shirt, dress pants and glasses. Asked me if his wife was in there, and she was in labor when he was coming home. Hospital policy dictates that we can't have random people, that we can't confirm identity that close to the rig when opening doors for PT safety. Security is there quick, holds him back a bit. We open the doors, roll the PT and her newborn out. He takes one look, sees the color of the baby. Jaw drop, look of despair, like a 1,000-yard stare. Even security had a look like, wow, that woman freaked up, and this guy knows it now. Wife, babe, I can explain every bit of this. I know it looks weird, but I can. We wheel her into no sign of husband. Last I knew, the husband didn't check into the hospital as a visitor. I'm assuming he went home to pack his stuff. Oh man. A friend of friend got 2 women pregnant, several months apart. One of the women had complications during the pregnancy and the baby was born very early. On the exact same day the other woman also went into labor. Father has 2 babies, same date of birth, different mothers. The women knew about one another. One ended up being insane and unfit and bolted. So the other woman is raising both kids. I was assisting at a cesarean when I was a junior doctor. The woman's dark-skinned partner had been in prison 9 months or so. I took the baby immediately upon delivery and announced cheerily it's a boy. Her first words were, "Is it black?" Luckily the baby was a mocha color that could have gone either way, and I told her in a mildly confused manner it could be. We had a very sweet blonde-haired blue-eyed mom and dad along with their entire extended family in the room for a delivery one busy afternoon at work. Think aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma, and grandpa too. The baby is born, and as the doctor places her on the mom's chest the first words out of her mouth are, "That's not my baby. That's not my baby." The baby in question, still attached at the umbilical cord, has beautiful dark curly black hair and dark skin. The nurse looks at her and tells her that this is definitely her baby because she's still attached to you, and she, not so quietly, tells the nurse, "There's no way. I never slept with a black man. It's not mine." The father is standing there silent, not sure what to do. A long awkward silence fills the room. We clean her and baby up as cheerfully as we can. We see the extended family filter out of the room and the father leave to get a cigarette. About 10 minutes later a tall black guy walks up to our front desk asking how to get to the patient in question's room. So a friend of mine, he is unfortunately dead, had cancer and he was dating a girl for about 2 years. He then discovered he had cancer and that he would live at best 1 more year. His girlfriend announced to him a week later that she was pregnant. They were both white. He kept on saying that life is a joke. He was happy because he would have a baby now, but sad because he would die in a year. Anyway, 9 months later the baby was born and it was black. He then disappeared for weeks and we learned that he had died a month later. Felt so freaking sorry. In high school my gym teacher was married to the biology teacher, who was also really good friends with my math teacher. Always saw them chatting and walking together. Well, the BO teacher got pregnant, and when she brought the baby in there was an unignorable resemblance to the math teacher. Her husband ended up driving to the nearest hospital and shooting himself dead in the parking lot. Was a big scandal at our relatively small private school. One of a few actually. Anesthesiologist here. C-sections are typically done under spinal anesthesia, and we're the ones at the head of the table keeping the mother calm and talking her through the procedure while the surgeons operate. I've seen it more than once, but I remember one in particular when the parents were both very Caucasian and the baby was very much not. The actual father obviously had to be very dark-skinned. At delivery, when the not father saw the baby, he just looked down at his wife, who was starting to cry, and calmly said, "You freaking hoe," and walked out. She started screaming for him to come back, but there wasn't much she could do since she was, still being operated on. She lost it to the point I eventually had to sedate her just a bit, because she was in danger of injuring herself. As far as I know, her husband never came back to the hospital. I don't know what happened after that. Newborn had chlamydia, got it from the mom, obviously. So the mom admits she was cheating on the dad, because there's no other way to explain that one. Except the dad was cheating too, with the other guy's girlfriend, and all four of them had chlamydia, with no idea who had it first. They also had no idea who the actual dad was. That was a rodeo. Edit. Well, that's what I get for editing before bed. I knew a guy who had a vasectomy, and his wife got pregnant. He accused her of cheating throughout her pregnancy until the baby was born, and paternity tests proved it was his. So he went back to get his vasectomy redone by the same doctor who botched it in the first place. Well, his wife got pregnant again, with twins. And so this guy was sure that his wife had cheated on him this time. He basically emotionally abused that poor little woman for her entire pregnancy, abandoned her for much of it, called her a hoe, etc. When the babies were born, paternity tests proved that they were his. They ended up suing the doctor who performed the botched vasectomy, and the wife divorced the husband for how horribly he treated her throughout her pregnancies. Consulted a couple who were expecting a baby and were confused about how she had chlamydia. Again, turns out they both had chlamydia, both got treated and continued doing their thing. She could not get her head round how she had it again. If he was the only guy she had slept with, he just looked very sheepish as I tried to subtly explain maybe he had caught it from elsewhere and passed it on. Took a long time for the penny to drop. One of those couples where you realize the kid won't get help with their science homework from their parents. Okay, story from a friend of my brother's. She worked as a nurse and a woman and her husband came in. They were both white, and she delivered a child that was black. The husband immediately starts saying WTF, while she is going on and on about dome and trays and everything. He orders a DNA test. While this is going on, her mother and stepdad show up. The stepdad is black. After the testing is done, the DNA test ends up showing that the baby is the stepdad's. Her husband instantly dropped her and cut ties. Edit. In response to some comments. This didn't happen over the course of a couple of hours. Husband hung out, albeit reluctantly, until things were conclusive. Once testing showed it wasn't his baby, they tested the stepdad. Probably suspected something. I wasn't there, I don't know the deeper details. Not a doctor or nurse, but an undergrad. I had a buddy, Caucasian, who'd been dating the same girl, also Caucasian, for a while. She gets knocked up, he proposes. Fast forward a few months and both families are eagerly waiting at the hospital to meet the baby. The baby comes out black. Everyone is in shock. Girl is frantically trying to convince everyone that there's been a misunderstanding. My buddy called off the engagement immediately, returned the ring, and never looked back. Not a doctor or nurse, but when I was 14, maybe 15, I found out my cousin and his wife were having a baby. Keep in mind my mum had lots of much older siblings, so my cousin was already 23 at this point. Fast forward 8 months later, me, mum and the rest of our extended family were eagerly waiting outside the delivery room, and we hear a scream. Not my cousin's wife, but my cousin. The nurse opens the doors for us, and we see my cousin sitting on a chair, his head in his hands. His wife is holding their baby in her hands, but the only thing was, the baby was black. Needless to say, they divorced a month later, and we have not heard from her since.